I'm Kevin, otherwise known as Forum DX257, your friendly neighborhood 1980s G.I. Joe reviewer, and today I'm going to be demonstrating how to repair the broken rotors on a 1983 FANG copter. Now this is a very common problem, and I'm going to be actually demonstrating two variations on how to fix this. Of course, which variation you choose will kind of depend on what materials you have available and what your skill level with tools are. Of course, you do have to remember to always wear the appropriate safety equipment when handling sharp tools or power tools. It would be so much easier to repair the rotor shaft on the Cobra FANG if you could only just take this thing apart. There's actually a seam line running all the way down the whole body. Unfortunately, it's sort of friction fit and glued together at the factory. So the black portion really just holds everything tightly together, and you want to access the sort of gray portion here, but that's really very difficult to do. Here we have an opportunity to see just what this thing would look like if you could just take it out just like normally. That's what the shaft looks like in its entirety. It's just a ½ an inch long little shaft with a knob on the bottom, and this knob is what kind of holds it down in there. Unfortunately, it cracks off like that most often, leaving this knob portion in there, and it's really hard to do anything with it. You can't even glue it in. You can't even glue these two pieces back together, because putting glue in here increases the likelihood that you're just going to spill glue right into the shaft, making this whole thing not able to turn. And this is what it looks like when the shaft is simply just broken off in here, which is, again, the most common way that this is just sort of cracked off. And you can see that this is really flush in here. It's very difficult just to do a simple glue job. Now these are the tools that I'm going to be using for my first method of repairing the rotor. Basically what that method is creating a connection point between what's left of the shaft stuck in the housing and of course the rest of the rotor. Now here I've just removed the blades because they can be removed quite easily. They can also be broken off as well, but that's something that you can actually repair with glue at a later time. It's more important just to repair the rotor back onto the housing. Now I've actually put the FANG into a padded vise here, just so that I have both hands free. And what I'm going to use as a connection point is just like a nail. Now this is a decoration nail. It's rather small. They're usually made out of like zinc or brass. They're fairly soft metal, so you can cut them and manipulate them quite easily, which is why I use them in repairs so often. We also have a drill. Now you might want to use a Dremel like I am with a variable speed on it, because you want to drill into these parts very, very slowly. As a matter of fact, if you have a hand drill, that might actually be better. You're really not going to be going very far into the plastic, and because it's kind of soft plastic, you really need to be careful about really heating that up with very, very high speed drilling. So be very cautious with that. Of course, once you're done with that, you're going to want to cut your nail, because obviously you don't want the nail head on there. It has nowhere to go really. So either you want to use the Dremel again if you have like a cutting disc, or optionally you can just use some wire cutters, which is what I'm going to use here. You're also going to want to mark the depth that you want to go in. Remember, this is only like a ½ an inch depth here, and you don't really have a lot of depth on the rotor itself. So I'm just going to use this metallic marker just to mark right directly onto the to the drill here, the depth that I want it. Now the size of the drill itself, I'm just using like a 1/16 inch drill here, but the size that you're going to choose is really dependent on how big the nail that you're going to use. So I'm going to be using a fairly small nail. This brass one is a little bit thicker, so it could actually work as well, because you want the hole that you're making to be smaller than the shaft, because you're going to be press fitting this in. There's not going to be any gluing whatsoever in this. Additionally, the shaft itself is only about, I think about 5/32 of an inch. So if you just don't have a nail, or if you're not confident with nails this skinny, or if you don't have a drill head this big, just make sure that what you're using is smaller than 5/32, because once you start drilling into plastic, it's going to expand one way or another, and you don't really want to expand it that much. So the tinier the drill and the tinier the nail, the better. Now, because what you're drilling into is a moving part and rotating at the same axis as your drill, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to press the drill into where you want first, and then start drilling. Just like that, just a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. And when you're happy with the length that you drilled into it, this is what it's going to look like. Just a little hole that's big enough for you to friction push the nail into here. And now we can remove the fang body from our vise and just place in the rotor. And we'll do the same thing. Just drill into it very slowly, and keep in mind that you don't want to go as deep as you would have into the rotor housing. This is going to be very shallow. And now that you've made the appropriate size hole into the rotor, and you've cut the length of nail that you want, now it's time to press fit them both together. Now, of course, the skids on the Fang are quite fragile. So what you want to do is you want to put something underneath there, like a screwdriver maybe, just so that it's resting on the body, because that's where you want to put the pressure and not on the skids. So you can just put that nail right into the hole. Use maybe something flat or hard like a hammer here. Of course, don't bang it in. You're just going to press it just a little bit in there. Then you're going to put the housing, put that on there, and press that down as well. Then you can put the blades back on. Oops. And now you've got a fully working F.A.N.G. again. Now this is the second method of repairing the F.A.N.G. rotor. Now this may seem simple, but this is the one that I would only use in well, pretty much dire circumstances. Now all you'll need is a screwdriver and a threaded screw, and that's pretty much it. The problem is that this method tries to separate, or at least crack open, the F.A.N.G., which is a very hard thing to do because, as I said, the main body is press fit and sort of glued together. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to try to wedge the screwdriver, or a flathead, into the back of the engine and just sort of pry it open, or at least crack it open along the seam up and along the housing, or just along the engine really. Unfortunately, this damages your F.A.N.G. I mean, there's no two ways about it. You are going to be goofing around and pitting up the plastic just a little bit here. And there's also a very, very high chance that what you're going to do is you're going to wind up cracking something along here which is not along the seam, cracking maybe the engine off, maybe the housing off, or something like that. So this is really, really something I can't warn you enough that this is something that you should only do if there's no other chance. I would say that if someone has tried to repair this before and has gotten glue into the housing, or somehow the what's left of the rotor shaft is just broken beyond being able to drill into it, or if you tried to drill into it and you've maybe drilled too far or have made some type of mistake or something like that, that's the only reason why you'd want to crack this open and to try and get the rotor housing completely out of there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push this thing in here, and again, this is going to crack open. It's going to seem to crack open very easily for me, only because I've done this a couple of times already now. But when you first do this, this thing is not going to want to budge, really. So you just want to push this thing in and just sort of raise it up so that you're breaking apart the seam line on the top. You can even use a second screwdriver, maybe just to push it in there, just to keep it open, and just to crack it open just along here until you finally free up this portion here. Now, I don't know how well this is showing up on camera, but you can see that I've stretched this out way more than I need to, just to really show you how this is constructed. So I'm just going to take out the piece here, the broken piece of the rotor, and you can see that this has its own separate little section which cups the knob on the bottom of the shaft, and the rest of this thing is just hollow upwards. So what you're going to do is we're going to replace this with a threaded screw, and it's just going to point upwards. Now obviously we'll need a screw which has a head which is similar in size to what's here, and I've chosen this screw here, and it's going to just fit in like that. It's not going to come out too far out of the top, obviously. Now obviously splitting open the fang, and especially the housing, is actually really the most time-consuming and, quite frankly, scary process that you have here. So the rest of it is just putting that screw and screwing it a little bit into your rotor. Now you can drill a little bit in there if you want. I think this is a soft enough plastic where you don't really need to do that. You can just sort of screw it right in there, like that. And so now you can just place this right in there, and you can see how this thing would make a better shaft than what we had before. And now you can just close everything up, squeeze this thing back together if it's possible. I suppose you can even put some glue along here and maybe clamp it down if it's widened up like mine has a little bit too much. But as you can see, and we can just place the blades back on. And once again, we have a fully working FANG copter, just with a different method of placing this on here. Well, I hope this repair video has been helpful to some of you out there. You can actually pick and choose certain parts of each method, or maybe even create your own method, and just leave it down in the comments to see how well it's worked for you. I do have to say though, if you are repairing a FANG copter or any toy for resale on the aftermarket, please be sure to say that it has been repaired in your description. To be quite honest, a really well done repair will actually make the toy sturdier than it was originally. This is, after all, more than 30-year-old toy now. So any improvements to the toy, which doesn't affect its aesthetic, quite frankly, might be a boon to certain collectors who are a little bit afraid of fragile parts. Well, that's all the time I have right now. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.